The Pokemon are what give each generation their identity, though art is completely subjective, so liking a Pokemon is a case-by-case basis, and it doesn't necessarily determine the quality of the game itself. Sure, a Pokemon's concept can be objectively more interesting than others, but that's just the nature of making countless mons every new game. And once a Pokemon's concept is done more than once, it starts to lose its flair. So although I enjoyed the older Pokemon designs, I definitely can't speak for everyone, as obviously shown by my last two videos comment section. The Pokemon series has been going on for 26 years, so it's vital to keep the formula feeling new from time to time. A good new feature should be something that changes and affects the series positively in the long run. For example, Gen 4's Diamond and Pearl introduced the split of physical, special and status moves, Wi-Fi battles and trading, and gender differences in Pokemon. All features that were implemented in every preceding title after Diamond and Pearl. Though it's important that a game doesn't place its entire identity within these new features, rather they should be a complement to an already well-established formula. For example, Gen 6's X and Y introduced a new typing, 3D modeling for all Pokemon that we still use 9+ years later, as well as everyone's favorite gimmick, Mega Evolutions. However, the problem is that X and Y place its identity in these new features. Remove them from the game and there's nothing that stands out from the region itself. Why? Because what X and Y introduced isn't special anymore. So as standalone games, they've dropped in value significantly as similar 3DS titles came out. In comparison, people don't only like DPP because it introduced these new features. Heck, I didn't even have internet when I first played Platinum. But it just added to the vast amount of content there was to do in the Sinnoh region. Speaking of regions, a Pokemon region should feel unique and riddled with lore throughout the game's different mechanics, new Pokemon introduced, and the characters we meet, as well as having identifiable landmarks and cities accompanied with amazingly catchy music. Again, a good example of this is Gen 4's DPP. Although many people don't like the story or characters of the Sinnoh region, I feel like they missed the main point. The real story to uncover in Sinnoh isn't Cyrus's evil plan, rather the backstory of the ancient legendary Pokemon and their connection to the old ruins and landmarks scattered throughout this seemingly mystical and holy region. Not only does every legendary have a place in the map respective to their concept, but each legendary feels connected to each other in a meaningful way, instead of just being cousin birds or dogs that are different types. Through the books in Canalave Library, the Pokédex entries, the mystery gift events, or the main and post-game content, it's clear that the Pokemon of Sinnoh are intertwined with the region itself. There's so much there that you can literally make a single-player open-world RPG expanding on the backstory of the significance of the oh wait, they already did. Compare this to Black and White. It fails to capture the same connection with the region to the Pokemon themselves. Yes, the story questions the morality of Pokemon battling, further personifying this message in the main legendary's colors, but the ending gives a very safe answer which leads to the whole narrative and region feeling redundant. The game also fails to show this moral conflict in the towns and cities, since they feel just as normal living and battling with Pokemon as any other region. The only moral conflict shown is with N and his encounters with the main character, making not only the region but the legendary themes feel weak and replaceable. Even their Pokédex entries only reference their concepts in the sequel. That's why when people look back at Black and White, they mostly praise it for the animated sprites only used in that generation, not really the Unova region itself. Which brings me to my next point. Mostly everything you do in Pokemon revolves around two key gameplay elements, catching Pokemon and battling. Though with every new generation, more elements around this formula were added to expand on the type of content available. A good Pokemon game has fun key gameplay elements that aren't boring or lazy for the respective time of release. Things like having lively model animations, or naturally paced catching system, or an intense battle format. It should also include as much gameplay elements as possible to cater to different types of Pokemon players, while still being naturally woven together with the more conventional gameplay elements for less gimmicky value. Take for example Pokemon Platinum. If players want to get all 5 trainer stars on their card, they have to delve into all aspects of the game. EV training, IV breeding, and using competitively viable strategies for the Battle Tower's 100 win streak. Poffin making and ball capsule decorating for winning the highest rank in the contests, as well as underground base making and digging for evolutionary items to get the national dex and 50 flags respectively. Everything is interchangeable, which forces the players to not just catch Pokemon or battle trainers if they want to complete everything. It also gives players a variety of things to do, not just one core aspect. If players are more competitively focused, then there are all the elements of that in the Battle Frontier and online. But if players just want to catch them all, shiny hunt, or just experience a new story, then there's more than enough content within the game. Compare this to Sword and Shield. After completing the main story, there isn't much post-game content or different gameplay elements to try other than competitive online battling. If you're not into that, then even with the DLCs, there isn't much of a game you'll enjoy. It's just more of going into the wild area and catching Pokemon. It doesn't help that Sword and Shield's wild area was much less refined than in Legends Arceus, which further takes away from the one unique feature it had. In the same way, Let's Go was basically a game for catching shiny Pokemon and nothing else, which is why its life cycle was so short. So, a good Pokemon game is basically Detective Pikachu, so go play it.
Well, should we interview the witnesses?